Hi, this is Bob Wells here, and welcome to Undercurrent Stories. This is the show where we hear about people's interests and uncover some fascinating stories at the same time. I hope you enjoy today's show. Hello, Bob Wells here, and welcome to another episode of the Undercurrent Stories podcast. Today's show is all about meditation. Do you currently meditate? Is it something that you're curious about? Well, for me as a child of the 1960s and 1970s, quite wrongly, my original perceptions of meditation were based on a mixture of Eastern religions, psychedelic music, joss sticks, sitting cross-legged, people going to India and, in quotes, finding themselves. And so clearly a lot of misconceptions. However, more recently, the subject of meditation has become more talked about and mainstream. So I was keen to invite a guest on the show who could explain, and I'm delighted to be joined by Claire Billings. Claire is a well-being-centered leadership coach and consultant with an emphasis on helping women develop their skills and attributes into their first-time leadership roles. As Claire's coaching is grounded in well-being, one of the core components is the practice of meditation and obtaining the benefits that it provides. Hello and welcome to the show, Claire.
Hi, thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. It's great to have you on. Before we talk about meditation, please can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your life's journey and how you discovered meditation and now how you share it with others, please?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Probably 20 or so years ago, when I went to India to, find myself, I didn't stay very long, but I was definitely starting on that journey as a, 20-something person. And then, kind of came away from it for a while, actually. But like many other people in lockdown, I found myself getting really interested in self-development, mindfulness in particular, and within that building a practice of meditation. And so over the last 5 years, it's, mindfulness and meditation has become part of my routine and sort of way of life, really, actually. And it's been really transformative. And it led me to, at the beginning of this year, I stopped my, safe job with the monthly pay packet in the big corporate world to set up as a coach and bringing mindfulness very much into the coaching practice as well. So yeah, it's really changed my life in lots of good ways.
You had a corporate life before that, did you, Claire?
Yeah, I've worked in the corporate world for about 30 years, first as a journalist. So my first job was in publishing, and then I became a advertising industry journalist for a fairly well-known magazine called Campaign. And then from there, I moved into working in advertising agencies, sort of running and leading their marketing departments up until the end of last year. And, I was at a company called Dentsu, and I was vice president of their brand and comms, and absolutely loved it, but just found that, I had this passion for something else. And could I actually, do something on my own, do something different, but give it back to the industry as well. I still very much work in the marketing industry, doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Now I'm a bit of a history buff, and I'd love to ask you, I don't know whether you can answer it, but because you're more into the practice of it, but the history of meditation, we sort of think of Eastern religions and stuff like that. What is the history of meditation?
And it's been going back thousands and thousands of years, probably most closely associated with Buddhism.
My understanding, the difference between mindfulness and meditation is mindfulness is the sort of going through the day being mindful, and meditation is the practice of actually stopping what you're doing and meditating. Is that right?
That's how I see it, yeah. So meditation is very much a part of my practice of being mindful, and living a mindful, more conscious and more aware. It's a way of being, actually. And, meditation, like yoga, is all sort of part of that, ways of trying to get to what, we call enlightenment,
Yes, yeah. And I understand there are different types of meditation. I've heard of, I think it's transcendental meditation is one of them.
I've
where
never
I think
actually
people
done
sort of
it.
No, that's the one where people sort of say "om" for a long time or something, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. And I mean, I've used OMS in meditations, and the teachers I've studied with tend to incorporate lots of different methodologies and techniques into meditation. And what's brilliant about doing an OM, and I've done that in yoga as well before, it's the reverberation within your body, and certain frequencies, sort of have different impacts on your body. So I think for me, it's really about bringing ourselves, into connection with ourselves, into our bodies, so that we can, be really sort of present in the moment. And then, the more you do these things, the higher your vibrations get, and you reach different sort of energy states. So for me, it's all very personal, and there are lots of different ways of doing things. But I think in a lot of practices, and certainly what I do, it's bringing a little bit of everything in to try and achieve what you want to achieve.
And when you talk about vibrations, you're talking about raising your vibrations to be in a better state, are you?
Yeah, I think that,
or raising your frequency. Sorry, raising your frequency.
Yeah. And I think that's, when you meditate, for example, you can experience different feelings and senses. Sometimes you can feel much lighter, sometimes it's a physical experience where perhaps you feel your skin changing, or a bit lightheaded. It's not an unpleasant thing, but it's almost suddenly as if, you might have had some tension in your body, or you were feeling a bit heavy. And then, over the course of the meditation, you feel a bit lighter. And then you can also be connecting into yourself. And people talk about being connected to source, or the divine. And for me, that's about connecting into, a higher self, or part of us. So during the day, in every day, we're distracted by so many things. The world, in a way, now is just full of distractions, whether it's watching Netflix or doing our jobs, or, just being busy. And, actually just being with ourselves and mindfully, not just kind of zoning out, like watching a box set or whatever, because that's almost like you're zoning out, you're not feeling. It's really this, for me, it's this practice of just going inwards and feeling into ourselves. And the more we understand ourselves, and the more time we spend in this kind of either meditative or conscious state, the more we access our inner truth, or our inner divine, or source, or whatever. Now, I think other people do see it differently, and, connect to spirit, connect to their guides, and all that kind of thing. And there's different ways of being and doing these things. But for me, it's all about trying to understand ourselves better, live a better life, really understanding ourselves, and so that we do what's best for us, but also being conscious of the world around us and other people. These are other sort of tenets of mindfulness, if you like, of just being, conscious and aware of the actions that we have and how they impact the world and impact ourselves, and trying to live our lives as close to our paths, and being able to be our unique selves, So for me, that's kind of what it's all about. But everybody has different ways of doing that and achieving that, I think.
Yeah. And from a sort of selfish perspective, if somebody got into meditation, what are they? I know you just said there about, that you can live your life more aware of what's going on, and, specifically with other people as well. But from a selfish point of view, what does one get out of it?
Okay, that's really good question. If I talk about my own experience, and everybody's will be different, I think really understanding myself, so I turned 50 at the beginning of the year, and I've had a fantastic career in advertising and marketing for 30 years. And I just kept going and going and going. And I think as I've learned to understand myself more, and I was working with a mentor, and she's one of the top sort of priestess teachers in the Netherlands, actually. And it was kind of by accident that I came across her. And I was very resistant in the beginning to spiritual teachings and all that kind of, thing. But I liked the idea of meditation because I had quite a lot of anxiety, actually. And I'd managed to kind of found ways of coping with it, but it was still there,
Yes.
And meditation was really sort of helping me with that. And I'm just getting back to the question, what does it do for us? What's the benefit to us when we are living more consciously? So kind of working with her, I began to really understand myself and what really drove me, what I was really passionate about. And even though I'd had a really successful career, you know, I have a great life, I actually found that there was something more that I wanted. And I'd always resisted anything to do with coaching or teaching or anything like that. And I remember when I was 11 years old, I always wanted to be a teacher, and then that changed and I forgot about it. And she said, you know, you're a born coach. I went, no,
Oh, really?
no. And then as I learned to understand myself more and what that could actually mean in terms of what do I feel my calling is or my purpose, it really was about helping people. And as I went on my own journey with anxiety and starting to unpick that through meditation and through mindfulness, and really understanding actually quite how much of a struggle it was, because I think I just existed and just got on with it regardless. I'm quite driven and determined, so I just kind of make stuff happen.
Yeah.
But once I started to understand it more, I started to become less anxious, and took each time I got anxious as how can I learn about myself? How can I, you know, get to know myself better? And then, you know, suddenly realized, well, actually, maybe I want to be doing something differently, and, you know, found this purpose and this calling to help others. So whether it's with anxiety or whether they are, you know, just getting in their own way or holding themselves back, you know, through my coaching, I can, you know, sort of help them understand themselves a bit more to unlock their, you know, and I work with female leaders. I work with lots of different people, to be honest, but that's my core sort of product, if you like.
Yes.
And to help them grow, because just because you've got anxiety or stress or, you know, or you're just getting in your own way and you've got an inner block about something doesn't mean you can't be successful. And sort of working with them and their goals where they might be holding themselves back, but then also understanding when they need to. I'm not a therapist, so I need to be able to guide them towards, right, okay, you might want to go and unpick that with a professional or something like that. But if it's something to do with marketing or corporate world, I can say, well, put these steps in place, you know, we work together on them, you know. And so what do we get out of it? That was my personal experience. So I would suggest that it's very much about us really understanding ourselves. And I often say, you know, I was living a life that I thought other people wanted me to live. And that was my own judgment about how other people saw me or wanted me to do, and actually just finding what I really wanted to do and then the good that I can bring to the world. So everything I do now is rooted in, you know, my drivers, but also what's my purpose. And that's given me so much passion and drive. You know, I've had a 30-year career. Well, I kind of fully expect to have another one. And I'm quite excited about that.
Do you feel better inside as a result of all this? Are you happier?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't that I was unhappy, but my anxiety is, I still get it every now and again. But as soon as it comes up, you know, it's just usually because life changes all the time and you're being faced with new situations all the time. So it is a pattern for me, but I recognize it. I see where it comes up in my body, you know, and which is something I've really learned through meditation and mindfulness, to see where I get a bit of a block in my body, if it's a bit of tension in my chest or my throat feels a bit tight, or, you know, there's a knot in my stomach. It's like, okay, what's that about, you know? And then in meditation or in a mindfulness practice, just sitting and breathing with that actually, and having that tool now allows me to go, oh, okay, that's interesting. Is this about the situation itself, or is it about me and something, you know, is it a warning sign and a red flag, or is this actually something to do with me where I have a judgment or an assumption about something, and learning about that. So the anxiety, whereas before it was, you know, it was really quite difficult. It's just not really there anymore. So I feel better in that sense.
Yes, exactly. So my understanding doesn't necessarily make you feel in quotes, happier. It's more a case of you can understand what's going on when you get a particular feeling about something like anxiety.
Yeah.
You can sort of almost view it as a spectator and live with it and question it a bit and move on.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way of describing it.
And have any of those close to you seen any changes since you've been sort of actively involved with mindfulness and meditation, Claire?
Oh, have I actually?
Have you had any comments at all?
I think, my really close friends and close relationships, yeah, absolutely. They probably notice that I don't get so worried about things and get into such a stressful state about things. Yeah. So I would say so, definitely. But I've made such big changes in my life as well,
Oh, right, okay.
So there's a lot going on. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And if we've got listeners who perhaps they're busy people, not busy enough not to listen to this podcast, but they're busy people, they're young, they're actively pursuing their careers, working hard, commuting, they've got a young family they're bringing up, and there's no hours in the day to even contemplate something like meditation. What would you say to them?
Well, it reminds me of this sort of Buddhist joke, which says if you've got time to meditate for half an hour. If you don't have time, meditate for an hour. But as you say, that's not going to help people who have got really busy lives, or, whether it's young children or demanding jobs, and they can't find that 20 minutes to meditate. I mean, I used to, when I was before the pandemic, actually, or was it before the pandemic? Before we went into lockdown, I'd already started on this journey, actually, and I would listen to my meditations on the train. I would just shut my eyes, put my headphones in, and for, 15, 20 minutes, I would, just do that. And I think people perhaps sometimes have this misconception that they have to be in a quiet room with no disruptions and, everything has to be perfect.
Well, that's my understanding of perception, yes. But it doesn't have to be.
Actually, no, it doesn't. And I've had a lot of conversations with different people about mindfulness and meditation and what it means for them. And not everybody can sit down and meditate or wants to or enjoys it or gets anything out of it. But I know people who do, mindful or meditative walking. Some people do jigsaws or, it could be all kinds of different things. But I think the thing for me is about doing it mindfully and being with our feelings and being with ourselves. So, the monks do everything in this way. They will do the washing up or the sweeping of the floor, and they will be in the present moment with what they are doing at that time. And for some people, actually, being with their feelings can be quite difficult and can be quite almost traumatic if, they've got some sort of things from their past that they haven't been able to deal with that are coming up for them. And actually moving around and doing something at the same time as feeling into things and doing it very gently can be a really good way of being with our stuff, rather than going, okay, I'm just going to sit with this, and because that can actually be really difficult, and everybody's different. So I think, whether it's mindful walking or mindful washing up, or you can do a lot of different things, and it's finding what works for you.
If you've got a hectic schedule, find something. If you go for a walk for half an hour on a Saturday or a Sunday, perhaps that's an opportunity to practice it, I guess. Yeah. To get into, I mean, when you obviously, I mentioned earlier on in the intro that you use this as part of your coaching. Do you do the sessions of meditation in groups, or do you do it one-to-one?
Well, a bit of both, actually. I do my coaching, one-to-one with people. So either, sort of short bursts of sessions or one-to-one, or I've got a coaching program that they can join, and they have sort of weekly one-to-ones with me. And what we do in that, and it's very similar to the group stuff that I do as well, we use the kind of a traditional coaching model called GROW, which stands for Goals, Reality, Options and Ways Forward. And I use that and combine it with mindfulness in between each sort of step, or might do a couple of steps together. And the idea of the mindfulness is that it just allows us to come out of all the daily stresses and to-do lists and things that we've got to do next, and really kind of go inwards. And it can help make those kind of actions that we come up with a bit more embodied, is a word I like to use, but it's not just in your head. You're breathing with it, you're sitting with it, it's in your body, because the mind is amazing, but it can race off into stories and thoughts and judgments and all that sort of thing. So I use that. At the moment, I'm running some free webinars, and, I get between sort of 5 and 10 people in each one, and we use that framework, but I do it in a group. In a couple of weeks ago, I did it with a room full of 60 people, and it worked as well. And you just do some sharing in between. So,
well, just for the benefit of listeners, I did actually attend one of those sessions a few weeks ago, and that's how we connected. And I have to say, it was really, I found it really good. And it was at the start of the day. I think it was about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something. And I must admit, it did sort of remain with me for the rest of the day. So that I can recommend that to anybody. We can put that on the show notes, I guess. So if anybody's interested.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. Yeah, I do. I run a weekly mindfulness session at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, and it's
9
free,
o'clock was it? Yeah.
And anyone can attend. Yeah, exactly. And I just do a meditation for 15 to 20 minutes. And it's just a nice way of midway through the week. It's called Connect and Reset. So that's exactly what we do. We connect into ourselves and we reset for the rest.
Well, it certainly reset me. Now, can I be a bit cheeky? We've spoken a lot about meditation. Is there any chance? Sometimes when we have musicians on, I ask them to sort of bring their guitars and do something, and some do and some don't. But I'd love to ask you: would you be happy to do a sort of short couple of minute meditation just to give people a flavour?
I'd absolutely love to. Yeah, absolutely love to. So,
well, I'll hand it over to you then, Claire. Shall I? I'll hand it over.
Thank you. I'll try and keep it very quick. So,
thank you.
So we'll just get straight into it, and just inviting you to close your eyes or just lower your gaze, whatever feels comfortable for you. And it's all an invitation, and just do whatever feels comfortable to you. Nothing should be forced. And then I also like to start just by connecting with the chair underneath us, our seat bones on the chair. And if you can feel it, great. If you can't, don't worry about it. We want to just be with where we are as individuals in this present moment. And again, the same with your feet. Your feet on the floor. It can help to uncross your legs and have them flat on the floor. And just connecting with the earth, connecting with the ground. And again, if you can't feel exactly the connection with the floor beneath your feet, don't worry. Just be with where you're at. And then just bringing your awareness gently to the breath. And you're not having to do anything clever or special with the breath. Just bringing your awareness to it, just noticing it coming in. And noticing it coming out. And if it changes from deep to short and shallow from one breath to the next, just go with it. And just trusting that your body knows exactly what breath it needs in any given moment. And just staying with this for a few more breaths. And again, if any thoughts and to-do lists are racing around your head, just give them an imaginary wave or an imaginary hello. Just acknowledge them, but try not to attach to any single thought. Just say, I see you, but right now I'm going to be with the breath. And I'm going to be with my connection to the earth and just bringing my awareness inwards. And then just taking a couple more breaths here before we start to bring ourselves out of the practice. And we're doing this very, very gently. And just keeping connected to the breath. connected to the chair and the floor and the earth. And you might just want to start to gently wiggle your toes or wiggle your fingers. You might want to just roll your shoulders a little bit. Move from side to side, just gently on your chair. And start to think about opening your eyes, but not having to do anything drastic. And then when you're ready, you can gently start to open your eyes.
That was fantastic. That's probably the most relaxing episode I've ever recorded in over 100. You've certainly got a very very relaxing voice, which helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is what I'm told, which is a great asset, I think, to have when you're doing lots of meditations and leading mindfulness practices. So, yeah, it's really good.
So if somebody's inspired to start meditating, obviously they could come on your free sort of webinar.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you say to somebody who's sort of just curious about it and wanting to start? What would you say to them, Claire?
I think find your own path and your own way and what's right for you. And there are so many resources and ways into this, really. You know, one of the things I first started listening to was a very light-hearted podcast called I Can't Believe It's Not Buddha. And it was with Lee Mack and his comedy writer, Neil Webster.
Oh, yeah.
And that, I think, is still online. And they cover so much. So they have so many guest speakers on, and they cover a lot of the history. And that's great. But then I've also listened to somebody called Tara Brach, and she's one of the most well-known sort of mindfulness and meditation teachers. She's a psychologist in the US, but brings a lot of Buddhism into her work. And she's also wonderful to listen to. And then I think it's just, once you start listening to a few of these things, they take you off on different paths and you can find your own people in your own ways. And that's certainly what I would suggest, because there's no point in me saying, come to my meditation class and do it my way, because we're all very different. And I think it's really important that we find something that we can do. So find something that engages you, that you enjoy first, that you can build into your routine. Yeah. And, as I say to all my coaching clients, set yourself some achievable actions. Don't set yourself this big, I'm going to meditate for an hour every day, because that might not be achievable. But set yourself something that you think you actually can do today or tomorrow, and then keep building from there. And then see how you can bring that into your daily lives. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely, it definitely is, Claire. And talking about some of your clients, not about them themselves, but can you recount any sort of what you think? Yeah, that's a success story. I've helped that client a lot, and the meditation and mindfulness part of it has helped. Can you recount any success stories like that?
Well, I think, probably quite a few. I think because what I'm doing, I don't know anyone else who combines mindfulness with coaching at the moment, apart from my teacher, who is the one who introduced me to it, really. But I'm doing it very much in the corporate world. She's very much in the spiritual world. And so anybody who comes into my coaching is probably looking for that. And so then whether it actually develops their meditation or mindfulness practice or not, often people come and they're like, oh, I love meditation. I never do it. But it's more about the shifts it really gets for them in terms of understanding themselves and having that confidence to go out and do things in the world that they might not otherwise have done, whether it's speaking on stage at a big event or it's taking that job that they never thought they would be able to do, or, whatever it is, stepping into some big scary situation, but, and being able to overcome some of those, fears and doubts about themselves, and actually tapping into, not just, their genius and how brilliant they are, but also we all have stuff that we struggle with, and just being okay with all of that. And I think we often think we have to be perfect, but actually it's fine to have all the other stuff as well, and just accept all that. And that's what I sort of work with them on. And there's been some amazing success stories. So
excellent. Yeah, we certainly all come with a lot of baggage, don't we, and stuff going on.
Yeah, it's all different. It's all different.
It's absolutely
it's what
interesting.
Makes us unique.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And do you ever meet? I suppose I would describe them as hard-nosed business people, where they sort of look at meditation and think, well, that's a bit woo-woo. What's all that about? How can that help? Do you ever? And if you do, how do you counter that?
Well, I think now I would say that most people understand how beneficial it can be, even if it's not for them. So the company I was at before, I used to run a weekly meditation session every week. I was on the well-being. We had all our DEI pillars, and we did a lot of mental health stuff and well-being. And I used to invite people in and give talks on anxiety or mindfulness or meditation. And it was, highly endorsed and invested in by the company. And It is certainly within the advertising industry, but I would imagine in all, different sectors as well. I know that, companies like Lloyd's have mental health pillars and people running the sort of mental health groups for their employees, so there's a lot of investment in it. So I would say that perhaps that there are people who probably are just never going to do it, and that's fine. But most people, certainly that I've encountered, see that there are benefits for people. So I've never really had to counter it. And I think if I did, I'd just say what I've said here, which is it's a very personal thing. And some people want to go and run a marathon, and that's how they deal with their mental health and keep themselves mentally fit and physically fit at the same time. And there are those of us who, just do things differently.
Well, thank you. We've covered a lot about meditation. I'd just like to ask a couple of questions about your coaching business itself. You mentioned that you are a first-time leadership coach, which I guess I understand as being for women, which I understand is if a woman is has a potential opportunity to be a leader in a business, then they may need a bit of coaching and help to do that. Is that right? Have I got my understanding right on that?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, there's so much coaching for executives once they get into those big C-suite leadership positions. And I remember on my own leadership journey, when I was kind of going from that head of up to director level and then up to be vice president, that journey was huge. It was such a big step. And I was actually really lucky at that point. I had a fantastic manager and mentor, and she really took me under her wing and taught me all I needed to know about, leadership. But at the same time, for my anxiety, I was having some therapy. And I think those two things together kind of opened everything up for me. And then suddenly my career just, I went from head of marketing to vice president within about 2 or 3 years, with a marketing director in between. But it was a big shift.
Yes.
And I suppose what I'm seeing is that there are a lot of women at that level, and they're leaving industries at that time, whether it's because of they want to become mums or different reasons, all sorts of different reasons. It's not just about that. And so we're seeing that there's a massive drop off, and there are so few women in sort of C-suite roles, less than 40% of our industry, but then, that's in the advertising industry, whereas the whole industry is sort of 60% female or something like that. So there's a big drop off. So it was really to help them, really seeing that, okay, what happens at that level that they're not staying or progressing, and how can I help them? And I just felt there was really something there in terms of all the things I learned and did wrong and learned from and grew from. And then I've kind of made it a mission really to help to get more women into leadership.
And what type of sort of turn-offs are there for women who are at that point and they decide, no, I don't want to do this because of what can you give some examples of what those things are?
Yeah. I mean, I've studied a lot of reports. McKinsey actually does they're sort of management consultants. They do a report every year called Women in the Workplace, and they've identified something at the lower levels actually called, which, they don't call it just a glass ceiling. They're calling it a broken rung on the ladder. So for every 100 men that get promoted from an entry-level position to manager, the number for women is only 85, and actually for women of colour, it's even less than that. It's in the low 70s, and it's declining. So there's a real challenge there in terms of at the lower level. So then you spend the rest of the time sort of trying to play catch up. And there are still, and even though there's so much more awareness now, there are still microaggressions, so these kind of unconscious biases, I suppose, within the world of work towards women. They might get mistaken for another colleague or called aggressive when they're being assertive. And, that sort of stuff, it is still happening. And so what they're finding is that women are kind of going, that they're either not taking the risks because they feel that their sort of hard-fought career there's too much at stake to speak up or throw out a crazy idea or whatever it is, be really
kind of stay put where they are and
and then also because of some of this stuff and how hard it is, they tend to leave because it's it just is it perhaps too hard, or they're not seeing a future for them, and so that's. They're the kind of the key reasons that are in all the reports, and I'm sure there's loads of other ones, but they're the main sort of stats. And
do you think companies themselves? I mean, I think it's a great initiative and fantastic. And do you think there are any initiatives that you're aware of where men are being sort of targeted and sort of saying, look, this is misogynistic. There might be these microaggressions. You've got to stop doing this. Is that happening to help the situation? Do you think?
Yeah. And, there's a huge movement in allyship at the moment within companies, and, which is really sort of men supporting not just women, but other minority groups, really to understand it more. But yeah, I mean, it gets, there's so much more awareness, and I don't think it's really, well, I would like to think that it's not tolerated, but it does still happen. So I think we don't unfortunately have gender equality. We don't have equality in pay still. So there's still work to do. There is a lot of amazing work. So I don't want to be too negative about it, but there is a lot of amazing work going on, but it's still happening.
Yeah, and I think on the positive side, I was reading an article the other day about, I can't remember what it was, but it was saying how if you do have, excuse the cat, just bear with me a second, please. He's a very demanding cat, Milton.
He wants to join in.
Yeah, so I have to let him in, otherwise he'll be meowing outside. He always wants attention. Excuse me. Good boy. Sorry about that. I was reading this article, and it was saying about how if you have an inclusive board, for example, how you're discussing something, you're going to get better results of
there's so much
resolutions to problems and stuff like that.
Yeah, oh gosh, I don't have the stats to hand, but I think women are seen as better leaders in a crisis, and also there is something like a better performance if you have a more inclusive board, because women bring something different, and if you have a more a board or a leadership team that is more representative of the world or the environment around you, then of course, you're going to get, ideas and a business that works better for everyone. If you're designing products and it's all men designing products for women, then they're not going to have that same understanding of if you had, both sides. And so, yeah, it's kind of recognizing that the two sides both bring good.
Claire, what do you most enjoy about what you do?
I don't know. I love helping people. I get absolute joy and pleasure in seeing people unstick themselves, whether they think they can't do something or they're, worried about something, and then working through that and coming out the other side and succeeding. I get a real, I feel really passionate about that, I think. Possibly because, I've done it for myself and gone, oh my goodness, I can't believe I actually did that. And then to be able to help other people do things that perhaps they didn't think they were going to be able to do, or that they were really struggling with, that's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I bet it is. And if we've got any listeners who are interested in talking to you about an opportunity to have some coaching, where can they get hold of you, Claire?
I'm all over social media, mainly on LinkedIn. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, and also Instagram. I have my coaching channel is Make the Leap 222, and I have one that's more dedicated to mindfulness and meditation, which is just Claire Billings 7. So that's probably the best way. Or my email is clairebillings222@icloud.com.
It's been great talking to you. Fascinating to learn about how you can use meditation and bring it into the modern world with, those benefits for everybody. And thank you especially for that little mini bite-sized meditation, which I know is a bit cheeky of me to ask, but I think it'll certainly give listeners an idea and a flavour of what it's all about. My guest today has been Claire Billings. Thank you for coming on the show, Claire.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
You have been listening to Undercurrent Stories. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to share the show link to your friends and family, and if you have 60 seconds, I will be most grateful if you would please rate and review. To hear more episodes, please subscribe to the show and visit undercurrentstories.com. If you leave your email in the link, we will notify you as soon as new episodes are released. Also, check out our social media links, details of which can be found on the show notes. Until next time, this is Bob Wells wishing you all the very best.